You are listening to the Pencil and Paper Podcast Network.
Hey Ramblers! Today's episode is brought to you by Fangoria. Since 1979, Fangoria has been the authority in the world of contemporary horror. As the only sanctuary for horror aficionados in its early days, it has now grown into an empire that expands beyond its celebrated magazine. From t-shirts, coffee mugs, beanies, enamel pins, there's something for every horror fanatic in your world, even if it's you. So head on over to shop.fangoria.com/pencil and paper productions or use code pencil and paper productions at checkout to get 20% off your first order or magazine subscription. Yes, it is a mouthful, which is why there are links in the show notes down below. That's shop.fangoria.com/pencil and paper productions or code pencil and paper productions at checkout for 20% off. Fangoria, first in fright since 1979.
Buy it or we'll tear your soul apart.
You're listening to the Horror Ramblings podcast, the show about all things horror. We hope you enjoy the show.
You're listening to the Horror Ramblings podcast, the show brought to you by Werewolf Spray. It's the only spray with silver lining. As always, I'm your host, Les. Steven's not with me today. He's not off battling demons or zombies or anything crazy like that. He's actually taken some time off to spend his anniversary with his lovely wife, Katrina. And I am with my lovely wife, Samantha, today to discuss something. I'm not sure 100% what we're going to discuss, but it's going to be something. And I think I have an idea, but how you doing, hun?
I'm tired.
Tired? You don't get tired.
It is a permanent part of my existence at this point.
Well, it's about to get worse. So, my loving wife, who does not love horror, I won't hold that against you. It's not a deal breaker. Never was. Kind of is sometimes.
That receipt's too expensive.
Let's talk about horror movies. And let's talk about slashers. Because you said something about talking about who would win in a fight. You did that like right before we started. So, I want to talk about one of your favorite characters just real quick.
Is that sarcasm?
Maybe. For anyone who knows you, they know that your favorite horror villain is the Creeper from Jeepers Creepers. Why do you love him so much? Let's get into that real quick.
10 out of 10, don't recommend.
But why? I'm still curious to this day. Like, why?
I've told you, I was traumatized as a small child to be forced to watch those movies with my mother. And then, you and your son have the habit of singing the Jeepers Creepers song to me when we're driving at nighttime. Yeah,
but he's not really that creepy. At least I don't think so.
When I am a small child watching that movie, it is creepy.
But you're a full-grown woman now.
And I'm still a scaredy cat.
Well, let's start with the Creeper real quick. I want to put him up against another slasher that you really love. That's Jason from Friday the 13th. Why don't you tell the people how much you love Jason and why?
He's stupid. That's all I have to say. He's stupid.
But why? Why do you think he's stupid?
There's no person that could die and come back as many times as that guy has. And it's just, no. And gone to the moon and New York. Who wants to go there? And I don't remember where else he's gone, but he's gone in a lot of freaking places and he just needs to go back to where he came from.
Well, technically he didn't go to the moon. He was
on a spaceship. It's fine.
Yeah, he was in space. And he's not exactly human. He's some zombie creature now after all these years. He's not just...
Zombies can die. This not so nice word cannot.
Yeah, but they have said before that Jason is actually one of the demons from Evil Dead. And if that was the case, you can keep cutting them apart over and over again and they still continue to come back.
He has been burnt. He's been all the things.
Okay, that's just one thing.
He's been all the things. Stabbed, beaten. I'm sure he's been put in a wood chipper at some point. Like, this man is dead.
I was going to put characters up against each other, but this is much more fun. So, you, you don't like the creeper because you were traumatized by him.
He also, takes human flesh and eyeballs and their favorite part of people.
Well, and then you really let Jason have it because
I do not like that man.
You don't like the concept. What about Michael Myers? I mean, he technically just keeps coming back.
Listen, it is not that I don't like Jason. I don't. But it's the fact that they have done so many dang movies about him. Like, let him die. There's no more teenagers to kill while they are screwing. Like, let them die.
Yeah, but I mean, look at how many Halloween films there are, and Michael just keeps coming back.
Technically, Halloween has multiple tree branches.
Multiple storylines, yeah.
Yeah.
But the original storyline...
I didn't watch it.
There were multiple movies. I mean, there's one scene in it where a bunch of rednecks shoot the shit out of him, throw dynamite at him, and he still comes back.
We've already talked about my feelings about Michael Myers. I don't mind the Michael Myers. The problem is my least favorite part of Michael Myers was the last movie we watched because I don't watch these things. And it was just too gruesome for no reason. Like, why is he going to come out of this basement just murdering all these firefighters? That is not what Michael Myers is about.
Well, I mean... They were in his way.
They weren't. He had plenty of opportunity to walk out of the dang house and go get what he wanted.
Yeah.
What about the people in the other houses that he just goes around murdering?
Well.
And the children?
Well.
What about the playground scene? Like, what was that? That was not necessary.
I mean, he did technically take out some people that were in a roundabout way looking for him. So, I mean, the biggest thing with that is I think part of that is fan service. I think fan service really does exist. And I think that they were letting Michael get some kills because they had to compete with all of the previous movies. And Michael still had to be a badass. So he still had to murder a bunch of people. Just saying.
Michael Myers always usually kills for a purpose. Like there's the one movie where he walks up on this kid and he just lets the kid go. Why we suddenly go from murdering with a purpose to murdering whoever the fudge we feel like? If you're going to use character development, I don't think that works.
Well,
I don't know if demons can have development.
Well, that's the thing. I don't know how much you can use character development on slashers. I mean, they sort of serve a purpose to just kill. What about Leatherface? Do you know anything about Leatherface?
No.
The cannibal from Texas that
I know Hannibal.
Chainsaws
not the
people?
Cannibal.
Well, I mean, they did refer to Hannibal as the cannibal at one point in time. Okay, well...
Doesn't he wear people's faces?
Yeah, hence the name Leatherface.
That's all I know.
Okay, well, we've gone through some of them so far. Let's get into Freddy. What are your thoughts on Freddy? Because this is going to be good. All right, come on. You know, my favorite slasher of all time.
I don't know. I got to think about it. He is less... I get where he comes from, like, a slasher point of view, but I don't know if I necessarily consider Freddy more of a slasher. I think he falls more in the supernatural realm that I'm not a huge fan of because I don't necessarily believe or not believe in those supernatural beings. So I think that to me, Freddy is less of a slasher. I think Freddy is oddly creative and they have made lots of decent kills for Freddy that are interesting in nature. I've only watched a few of the Freddy films because, don't like this stuff. The song's catchy.
Well, yeah. Well, and also, I get where you're coming from with the whole slasher thing, him not being a slasher, but I guess you could consider him sort of a supernatural slasher because when he was alive, he was doing the same thing. He was
children.
Well, yeah. And honestly, out of all of the characters, out of Jason and Michael Myers and Leatherface, to me, Freddy's probably the most evil.
Well, I kind of to spin off of that, I don't know if necessarily I find him the most evil or not. I do think he's kind of the more of the easier ones for people to relate to, not really relate to, but to like them or dislike him because he has a lot of one-liners. He speaks while Jason and Michael Myers, and I don't think Leatherface actually talks. So, he's the first one you mentioned that he kind of has one-liners and whatnot. And he can speak his actual purpose. He wants to kill these kids on Elm Street. There's no other real reason for what he's doing.
Yeah, but again, I guess I wouldn't, I guess maybe not say he's the most evil per se, but I would say that he is definitely irredeemable.
Well, I think he's more creative.
Yeah, but I'm just talking about their reasons for what they do. You know, Michael Myers is a dark character whose purpose is to
Kill his sister.
Well,
allegedly.
Kill. I will just say, just in general, you know, he's this dark force, but there's a whole supernatural thing to Michael Myers about him being this,
Doesn't that depend on what storyline you're watching, though?
Yes, but I mean, I'm just going on the overall aesthetic of Michael Myers. He's something that transcends a body. Even if Michael Myers dies, what he is still continues on to a degree. But with characters like Leatherface and Jason just kept killing after his mother was taken from him. That was sort of his thing, and then Jason got to a point where he just wanted to be alone. He just wanted to rest. Then you got all these horny teenagers that come to your camp, and you don't want anybody there. Jason just wants to be left alone. That's how I've always felt about Jason. Leatherface is a product of his family. His family understood that he was simple. He's not all there in the head. They call him simple and stupid and things like that, but he's very strong. And he's really a victim, I think, of his circumstances. Does he enjoy what he does? Yes, but that's all he's ever been taught. Freddy's my favorite slasher, but I will also say out of all of them, when you read about what they do, Freddy's specialty is killing children. And Wes Craven wrote him to be an evil character that really nobody should like, but let's be real, Robert Englund made that character really likable. So, I don't know, I've always felt like he's just a very irredeemable character, and I think out of all the slashers, I think I would put him in the category of probably the most evil out of them for that reason. But there's also Pinhead, but I don't think Pinhead really counts as a slasher.
Well, and I think when I was just sitting here thinking about it as you were babbling, that Freddy and Michael Myers are kind of polar opposites, because Michael Myers does everything so quietly. He doesn't run. He's not in a huge rush to get to where he needs to kill the people he needs to kill, and he doesn't talk at all. And why you have Freddy, who talks all the time and is very loud, and he wants it known. He thinks that there's fear in his being loud and chasing you, because you never know when he's going to catch up with you, while Michael Myers is just a silent, you turn around and he's there and you didn't even know it.
Well, and that's another big difference too, though. You know, Michael's in the real world. Michael's a certain way. Freddy is in your dreams. He can be loud, he can be obnoxious, he can be all over the place, and it doesn't matter because you can't escape. Now, when he was alive, he was a little bit different in how he did things. He didn't use the one-liners and things necessarily until he had the kids trapped. Care. True. I don't know. I'm still wanting to know about this whole creeper thing. Like, I know why you don't like the creeper, but like, this fear is just, he's a good character.
I don't know. I don't remember anything from the movies besides, his creepy looking vehicle, what he did. And then the last scene of him standing behind the brothers, like, eyeballs or whatever, or his peepholes, and just staring through
his peepholes.
Yeah. So I have blocked out the Jeeper from my memory, and I just know the deep fear that I have when I hear him, and so it's not a thing I'm comfortable with.
Yeah, I mean,
there's just certain things that I can't do, and supernatural things are a lot of that, and I think that's kind of the creeper.
Yeah, and I like the first two Jeepers Creepers movies. The guy that created Jeepers Creepers, he's a very sick individual. He ended up going to jail because of some things he was doing.
Who in Hollywood hasn't been in jail?
Well, people can Google it that are listening what happened with that whole situation, but I wish they would rewrite it and base it closer to the there were some comics that were released of the Creeper, but the Creeper is just this ancient evil that hunts, and I think the thing I like about it the most is there's really no motive, like, for revenge or, anything like that. This is just what this thing naturally does. This thing just hunts.
And maybe that's what is so off-putting for me, is because with my life and my job, and I like to understand the motives behind things, and I can understand whatever stupid reason Jason has for doing the stupid stuff that he does. And then Michael Myers and Freddy, they all have their motives of whatever they may be, and the creeper just does whatever the hell he wants and he doesn't care. And so I struggle with liking or being impartial to him as a character because I don't understand him as a character.
Which, I mean, makes a decent amount of sense. But I won't focus on the creeper too much more because I know you don't really like talking about him. But I better ask this on behalf of Steven. What about Chucky? What do you think of Chucky?
I'd kick that doll across the room and he'd be dead.
It's not really that easy. I mean, he...
Put him in a box. What is he going to do? He is a toy.
Well, he can also invade other Chucky dolls.
He's a toy.
And he does have more strength.
The only thing he invades is his wife.
Well, Steven, you got Samantha's thoughts on Chucky, I guess. So, I know you're not big in horror.
I've never watched the Chucky movies, so that's not a fair assumption for poor Steven.
We got to fix that.
No, thank you. You get one movie a year. And
What do you think, as someone who doesn't really enjoy horror, what do you think draws people to it?
In some ways, it's a way that, rational and normal people are able to kind of let out their dark fantasies that as normal people, we have a conscience that says we shouldn't do the stupid things that these people are doing. And so I think that people can relate to horror movies because they're able to release those dark imaginations, and they can relate, as you did a paper on horror movies for schooling. And I thought that it was interesting to think about the different ways that, we release fear, and then all of the benefits that come from not just living in your fear, but being able to release it. There's adrenaline with watching horror movies that people have. I'm not a huge fan of horror movies. I will, however, go to a haunted house and do haunted house things because I can, in my mind, differentiate that that's not real compared to what might be in a horror movie, because not necessarily is it not real or not. These people, I think that's why I like slashers the better, because I can relate them to actual human beings, and they're just evil people that live in the world. And then the supernatural, I can't have a concrete measure for that.
Yeah, I mean, Wes Craven put it best when he said, we don't, and I know I'm going to butcher it, but basically we don't view horror to, cause fear. We don't make horror to cause fear. We do so to release it. Watching horror films in a safe place, being able to live out something scary within a safe area really helps with the anxieties that a lot of people suffer. I know in the very first episode of the podcast, I talked about my relationship with the horror genre and why I love Nightmare on Elm Street, because of the fact that it helped me with my fears when I was a kid. So, I mean, there is a benefit to viewing these kind of films. I know that, like you said, you like to go to the haunted things, and I know that when we go to those things, there is that adrenaline rush. It gets you excited. You feel good about, you just get pumped up. It's like riding a roller coaster almost. So with that being said about the horror thing, what is something that you just cannot stand about horror? Like, whether it be like the fact that people make stupid mistakes, or because we've sat and, like I said, well, like you said, you give me at least one horror movie a year. Sometimes I'm lucky and I might get two. But I mean, even when we're sitting there watching a horror movie, I've heard you like critique the film a little bit, or talk shit about maybe a choice somebody made or something. But what's something that just really, as an outsider looking in, what is something that when you see it in horror films, maybe it's just some big like cliche that happens in a lot of them that just really irritates you?
I definitely wouldn't say that I care that people make stupid mistakes, because in a situation, I don't know what I would do. Maybe I would be dumb enough not to go to my vehicle and run into the woods because I'm some dumb person who didn't think about grabbing my keys off the counter. But I think that's the most relatable thing from horror movies to real life, is we all make those stupid mistakes and we all make stupid decisions. And in a fight or flight situation, who knows how we would actually react. But the thing that usually turns me off from horror movies is when it's overly gruesome. And maybe that's not why I haven't watched the Saw movies, because I feel like they're just overly gruesome and they turn into a game, and that's just how he works. But I'm not one that goes to the overly gruesome, and I'm not just someone who wants to see no motivation. I want to be able to understand the background of the character. I also think it's very predictable when horror movies go after the dumb person who decided not to get in their car, or, hide in the shed in hopes that the person won't check the one shed in the, 100-acre lot. So I think those are the stupid things that don't necessarily shut me off from horror movies, but I think that if you want a good horror movie and you want someone from the outside to like it, you need to have a good plot. You need to have a good backstory, even if it is this person just likes to kill people. That is fine. Just make it a decent thing. Well, not decent, but just make it to where it's not stupid kills. It's not like Michael Myers just killing firefighters because they made it, were in his way. Like, there can be ways to, and I get the point that like Michael Myers, they got in his way, but they didn't. So if you're going to make it to where these people are just being killed, then get them in his way. I would rather see Michael Myers kill 60 cops that are trying to shoot him down and stop him from getting to his sister, rather than him killing random people who are trying to put out a fire, which actually is a benefit for him because he, quote unquote, could die if he was caught in a fire. So
No survivors. Now, and on a side note, in the newer movies, she's not his sister. She's just the one that got away.
She also sucks in the newer movies, because if she spent that much time training to kill this guy, like, you're going to put up no fight when he actually shows up? Like, no.
I think they were also just trying to show
They
how
rushed it.
powerful
It was rushed.
he is. Well,
No, it was rushed. They ran out of time because he was killing all these pointless firefighters, and they couldn't actually get to the meat and the juices of the movie.
Well, on that note, what is something that you actually enjoy about horror films? That's a hard one, huh?
I'm supposed to enjoy something out of these things?
What's something that you think horror films do well, I guess, since you don't really enjoy them per se?
I don't know. I don't know if any movie actually does this very well. Is that you need to have a good plot and a storyline, and you need to have good characters that either have some sort of character development as you go through or not. But I think the biggest issue is always they get in too big of a hurry. And if you think you have so much to do in a movie, try to make it a substantial movie or get rid of the pieces that you don't need. I don't mind the Candyman movies. I don't remember the last time I watched them, but they're one of my favorite. I don't mind the Conjuring movie. I think that had a good plot. The demon thing in there was after one thing and one thing only, and you knew what that one thing was at the end. It didn't show you what it was beforehand, but you knew that there was a reason for what it was doing, and that you were on the edge of your seat waiting to see what, and I can't even think of their names.
Ed and Lorraine Warren?
Yes. We're going to do to stop this thing from killing the family, which was its primary motive. I think that sometimes I can be surprised with a twist that happens in some movies, horror movies or not. I like being surprised. I don't want to be able to predict what is going to happen because I read a lot. I have a crazy imagination. I work a job where I see some of the most horrendous things in real life. So if you can't surprise me, then I'm going to lose interest. I'm going to be playing on my phone for 20 minutes.
Which is a valid point. I mean, I guess you sort of in a roundabout way named something that you like about horrors. Sometimes it's good at surprising you. So, I don't know. Is there anything else you want to say about horror? I thought we'd just do a real quick episode, but is there anything else that you would maybe put out there, at least your opinion on horror from an outside view?
You didn't give me enough. I struggle with this genre because I am a scaredy cat. It's like I do appreciate when horror is kind of mixed with comedy or other things that kind of lighten it up, because I have been a scaredy cat my entire life. And I've not necessarily been afraid of the little things like your son is, where I'm scared of the dark or those things. But it's the unknowns, and this person could kill me if I fall asleep that scare, little children, rightfully so. So I like when you can mix a couple of genres like horror and comedy. Like we watched the new Renfield movie, and though it felt rushed, it was pretty decent of a movie, and it wasn't overly bearing on the horror movie side, and it wasn't just comedic release like the scary movies are.
Well, if you don't have anything else, I guess we can wrap this up. I love getting you going on a tangent about horror movies sometimes.
You just like to hear me complain about Jason.
Sorry, Steven. Apparently Samantha doesn't like Jason, or it sounds like she probably wouldn't like Chucky either. But other than that, guys, I guess all I can say is let us know over at Horror Ramblings what your guys' favorite horror movie is, or what horror villain you love, or heck, even simply send us something saying why you love horror as a genre. And of course, I'm not very good at all these closings, so other than that, guys, remember to stay spooky.
This has been the Horror Ramblings podcast. Join us next time for even more.
This has been a Pencil and Paper Podcast Network production.